Saved by the Sea, Part 1, Into the Blue. The waves that morning were perfect. Soft light spilled across the horizon, and the air smelled of salt and summer. The shoreline at Marina State Beach was almost empty, save for a few early risers with boards under their arms and sand between their toes. But for Todd, it was never about the crowd. It was about that moment, the one that happens just before you catch the wave, when time slows down, and it feels like the ocean is waiting just for you. Todd Endress zipped up his wetsuit with the easy rhythm of someone who had done it 1,000 times before. At 24, he had spent most of his life chasing waves up and down the California coast. Surfing wasn't just a hobby. It was breath, it was freedom, and it was the only place he truly felt at peace. His board hit the water with a quiet slap. He paddled out, muscles remembering every movement, every shift of weight. The surface shimmered like broken glass, and beneath it, silence. Then came a flicker, just at the edge of his vision. He turned his head. Dolphins. Not one or two, but a whole pod, maybe a dozen. Their fins rose and fell in graceful arcs. One leapt fully out of the water, twisting mid-air before disappearing again with a splash. Todd smiled. They were always a good sign. He liked to think they watched out for him, playful, curious, part of the water itself. Sometimes they swam close enough to hear them breathe. As he sat on his board, waiting for the next set, he glanced over his shoulder again. Still there, moving slowly, like a shadow following him. The dolphins circled farther out now, as if giving him space. Todd paddled toward the break. The rhythm of the ocean felt right. His hands sliced through the water, his body attuned to every subtle shift. Then everything changed. In an instant, without warning, a force slammed into him from below. A violent, bone-jarring impact that launched him upward before gravity dragged him down into the churning sea. His mind barely had time to register what had happened when the second hit came. This one sharper, more precise. Pain exploded in his back like fire, and he realized, the worst way you can realize, that something had taken a bite out of him. A big something. The water around him darkened, not just red, thick, his own blood drifting in clouds. Every nerve in his body screamed. Todd tried to move. He couldn't. Then the third strike. Something clamped down on his leg, hard. He felt the teeth puncture, dig into muscle, grip bone. Then, just as fast, it let go. Not out of mercy, just circling. He was being hunted. Time stopped. His heart thudded in his ears. He couldn't scream. Water rushed into his mouth, choking off the sound. And then, a flash of gray. Then another. A dozen shapes cutting through the red cloud, fast and purposeful. The dolphins. They weren't just nearby. They were intervening. One darted between Todd and the shark. Another slammed the water with its tail, stirring up foam. They weren't fleeing. They were defending. The shark hesitated, circling. The dolphins closed ranks, and Todd, bleeding, barely conscious, floated between them, shielded. Part 2. Blood and Salt. The water pressed in on him like a weight. Todd's body floated just beneath the surface, caught between sinking and surrendering. He felt the salt burn deep inside his wounds, a kind of pain that wasn't just physical, but personal. His vision blurred as blood clouded around him, warm and heavy. Somewhere in the back of his mind, a thought surfaced, simple and cold. This is how it ends. But the dolphins were still there, moving, circling, darting like arrows. One brushed his side, nudging him upward. Another swam underneath him, almost lifting his torso from below. It didn't make sense. None of it did. But it was happening. They weren't leaving. The shark came again, a massive shadow beneath him. Closer this time, slower, testing. Then the water exploded. Two dolphins lunged at it from either side. One struck the shark's flank hard. Another dove straight toward its snout. The shark turned, not away in fear, but in confusion. And in that moment, that brief moment, it was enough. Todd reached out blindly and found his board. His arms shook violently. Every muscle was screaming, but he held on. The dolphins swam around him in a wide circle now, keeping distance between him and the predator. Todd kicked weakly, forcing the board forward with one leg, the other nearly useless, shredded to the bone. Stroke, gasp, drift, repeat. He didn't think about survival. He didn't think about the beach. He just thought, stay awake, just stay awake. Behind him, the shark faded. The dolphins didn't. The shore was still far. Waves rolled in soft, and for a moment it almost looked peaceful, as if nothing had happened. But Todd's body trailed a red ribbon behind it. Time was bleeding out. Then a sound, faint at first, then louder, a voice. Another surfer had spotted him, a friend named James. At first, he thought Todd was resting on the board, just floating. But as he paddled closer, he saw the blood, the color, the way Todd's hand gripped the board not with calm, but desperation. James shouted. Todd didn't answer. Then came hands, strong, real, grabbing his arm, pulling the board. James yelling for help. The dolphins were still there, just beyond the break. Moving slowly now, watching. Todd was barely conscious when his body hit the sand. His skin was pale, his lips blue. The bite in his leg had opened muscle all the way to the bone. The wound on his back, a gaping crescent that looked more like an explosion than a bite. Paramedics arrived within minutes. One of them would later say he'd never seen anyone survive blood loss like that. They loaded Todd into the ambulance. The doors closed. The beach fell silent again. But offshore, the dolphins remained. Just for a few minutes longer. Then they vanished into the deep. The ER was a storm of urgency. Doctors called for blood, fast. His vitals were crashing. Nurses counted out sutures. A trauma surgeon shouted for a thoracic tray. No one asked what had happened. They knew. Shark attacks left a signature. Over the next hours, doctors closed the worst of the bleeding. They cut away dead tissue, flushed the wounds. Todd drifted in and out of anesthesia, his mind catching fragments of sound. Scalpels clinking on metal trays. Someone whispering, "I don't know how he made it in alive." When he awoke the next morning, a white ceiling greeted him. Then pain. Then tubes. And then silence. He didn't cry, didn't speak, just stared. It was a nurse named Carla who first broke through. "You're here," she said softly, setting a hand on his arm. "That means something." Todd blinked, then nodded once. Then, finally, words. There were dolphins. Part 3, the slow climb back. The hospital room never slept. Even at night, machines hummed and blinked. The fluorescent lights overhead never fully dimmed. And pain became a constant presence, a rhythm beneath everything else. Todd lay still most days. His body ached in places he never imagined could ache. His leg was wrapped in layers of bandages, the skin beneath slowly stitching itself back together. The gash across his back had required nearly 600 stitches. There were moments he didn't want to know the details. But every morning, when the nurse asked how he was doing, he said the same thing. "I'm here." And that was true. He had survived. But surviving was only the beginning. The nightmares came first. Water, teeth, blood, over and over. In some dreams, the shark never left. In others, the dolphins never came. He would wake gasping, heart pounding, fists clenched against soaked sheets. Doctors called it trauma. But to Todd, it felt like the ocean had left something inside him, something he couldn't explain. When the bandages finally came off, Todd saw what was left, a long, ragged scar across his lower back. Twisted and brutal. His leg looked worse. Muscle torn away, skin patched from grafts, angry purple-red scars that refused to fade. He stared in the mirror a long time that day. He didn't feel lucky. He felt marked. Rehabilitation was worse than the surgeries. At first, he could barely sit up without assistance. Muscles had atrophied. Nerves fired at random, sending burning jolts through his thigh. Every step was an act of will. But the worst pain wasn't in the body. It was in the silence of the surf. He could hear the ocean from his apartment window. He kept the window open even when the wind was cold. Some part of him needed it, like an old friend who no longer spoke to him, but still sat nearby. His surfboard leaned against the wall, untouched. His wetsuit stayed folded in a box. His friends came by, brought food, tried not to talk about the water. But it was always there, in the air between them, the thing they shared and the thing that had nearly taken him. It was weeks before he spoke of the dolphins again. He mentioned them once to his physical therapist, a man named Raoul. "They were there," Todd said one day, through clenched teeth as he forced his leg to move. Raoul looked up from the clipboard. "Who?" "The dolphins." Raoul didn't laugh. He just nodded. "Yeah, I've heard stories." Todd hesitated. "You think that's all it is?" Raoul shrugged. "I think the ocean keeps a few secrets. You lived. That's not nothing." It wasn't until month 3 that Todd stood at the shore again. He didn't go to Marina Beach. Not yet. He chose a quieter cove, farther north, less waves, fewer people. He stood in the wet sand with a cane in his left hand and a brace on his right leg. The wind pushed his hair back, cold and steady. The ocean looked endless. He didn't go in, but he didn't leave either. He stood there until the tide reached his feet. And for the first time since the attack, he let it touch him. It wasn't just water, it was memory, it was healing. One night he finally said it aloud, not to anyone, just into the dark of his room. "They saved me." He didn't need to explain who they were. He remembered the eyes, the sound of their breath, the pressure of their bodies pushing him upward, away from death. They weren't just animals, they were something else. Call it instinct, call it empathy, call it what you want. But they chose him, and because of that choice, he was still breathing. Part 4. The Choice to Return. Summer came quietly. No fanfare, just the steady rhythm of long days and golden light. The ocean warmed, the breeze softened, and the beaches slowly filled with people who had never seen the inside of a trauma ward. Todd stood at the shoreline again, this time at Marina, that beach. He held his board under one arm. His legs still ached, especially in the mornings, but it moved. It worked. His back was stiff, but it held him upright. And for the first time in nearly a year, he walked into the water, not as a patient, not as a victim, but as a surfer. The board hit the waves. He climbed on, paddled out, alone, but not alone. The sea was calm that morning, as if remembering him. He moved slowly, but each stroke was certain. He didn't push it. He wasn't here to prove anything. He was here to say thank you, to breathe, to feel again. Halfway to the break, he paused, sat up, let the board rock beneath him, and there, in the distance, a flash of silver. Then another. Fins, moving in arcs, closer now. They didn't come near, not like before, but they were there, and he saw them, and he smiled. "I see you," he whispered. One dolphin breached, twisting into the morning sun, then vanished into the depths. Todd exhaled, then turned toward the wave that was forming just behind him, and paddled. Life didn't return to what it had been. It became something new. Todd no longer chased the biggest breaks or competed for the tallest swells. He spent more time with local kids, teaching them how to read the ocean, how to respect its power and its kindness. He talked less about the attack, more about what came after, about gratitude, about second chances, about what it meant to be pulled back from the edge by something that didn't have to help, but did. One afternoon, after giving a talk at a coastal school, a little girl raised her hand and asked, "Do you think they knew you were in trouble?" Todd paused. "I think," he said, "they saw someone who didn't want to die, and they decided not today." The room was quiet for a moment. Then another hand went up. "Did you ever see them again?" He smiled. "Maybe. I still go out there. I like to think they remember. But even if they don't, I do. And that's enough." Years passed. The scars faded, but never disappeared. Sometimes people asked if he ever wished it hadn't happened. The attack, the fear, the pain. Todd always gave the same answer. No, because it showed me something I would have never believed otherwise. That the line between species isn't as thick as we think. That empathy doesn't always speak in words. That help can come from the sea. Final note to the listener. If you're hearing this now, if this story reached you somehow, take it with you. Take it as proof that even in the darkest moment, something unexpected can rise. A force, a choice, a second chance. Sometimes it wears a uniform, sometimes it wears a fin. But it's real and it matters. If this story moved you, share it. Let someone else remember that hope doesn't always come from where we expect. Leave a comment, click like, and if you believe in true stories like this one, subscribe. We have more to tell, because the ocean is full of stories, and some are still watching from just below the surface.